What up, everyone? Welcome back to Knicks in 4, where we talk everything Knicks. I'm your host, Ayers. If you're new to the channel and you're enjoying what you're watching, please feel free to like, subscribe, share a comment. We'd love to hear your thoughts. Let's get into it. So, quick video today. Just wanted to share my thoughts on this whole ongoing Cam Reddish drama. Now, as we all know, Cam Reddish has been benched going back to early December, and he hasn't seen the floor since. And while there's been a lot of speculation as to what was the reason for Cam Reddish being benched in the first place, finally, we have some reporting and some details as to what actually happened. So what we're going to do is react to this whole situation and see what is happening internally with the Knicks organization. Now, let's take a look at an article posted on dailyknicks.com and give our reaction to it. Knicks fans ready to banish Tom Thibodeau after Cam Reddish treatment by Jordana Clark. Cam Reddish is likely entering his final week as a player for the New York Knicks. The 23-year-old went from being a starter earlier in the season to racking up 27 straight DNPs, all with no explanation for why he's been delegated to the bench. Evan Fournier has received playing time over Cam Reddish. Now, again, this has been something that we've all been speculating about as Knicks fans, as NBA fans altogether, and I had my own speculations. I think we can all agree that initially when Cam Reddish was first benched, I think we all assumed that the reason was justified for Grimes coming back in from injury and inserting him back into the starting rotation, which we all know is what Tom Thibodeau wanted to do since the beginning of the season. But as a result, Grimes was injured to start the season, and Cam Reddish was the likely candidate to step in and fill that role. And when Quentin Grimes came back, it seemed like it was an automatic situation where Cam Reddish was just instantly relegated to the bench. There was the other thing that was speculated about was whether or not the Knicks had actually already decided that they were going to go ahead and trade him a couple of months ago. And you know how teams are at some points when they don't want to play a guy because they're afraid of him getting injured, which could hamper their trade scenarios. So that was another speculation. And in a few videos past, I made my own predicament, my own speculation as to why Cam was benched. That being that I believe strongly that Cam Reddish's camp internally must have told the Knicks camp that, hey, our guy is not getting the adequate time that he deserves. And if you're not going to give him an allocated amount of minutes per game, then don't even bother playing him altogether. So it was in my belief that Cam Reddish, his agent and his camp decided to not play him altogether and sort of preliminarily agree to, set differences aside and just move on altogether. But moving on, there are reportedly several teams interested in Reddish, but according to SNY's Ian Begley, there are a couple of teams that are considering two things. They would like to see Reddish play and looking ahead to having him as a restricted free agent in the offseason. Which team trades for him will have to ensure that he's part of their long-term future. Speaking of making sure that Reddish will be a part of a team's future, that isn't something that the Knicks spent enough time thinking about when they traded a protected first-round pick for him last year. Reddish starting his time out in NYC, being delegated to the bench, and that's how he's been finishing his stint in the city. Now, let's rewind a little bit and go back to last season. And, initially when we traded for Cam Reddish, we sent the first-rounder and Kevin Knox, and we got back Cam Reddish in return. Now, I remember myself, along with a lot of Knicks fans, I'm sure, were very excited at the thought of having Cam Reddish on our team. We know Cam and RJ played together in Duke, so the tandem of those two in the starting lineup was something that was very appealing. And when he comes to the team, to everyone's surprise, he didn't even really play that much. Now, whether it's true or not, there were reports out there that Tom Thibodeau was against bringing Cam Reddish in this rotation altogether. So if that is the case, then that makes a lot of sense for what we've seen take place from that point to now. Now, whatever happened internally, clearly if Tom Thibodeau was not on board with Cam Reddish being on the team, then that's something that the front office and the coaching staff didn't see eye to eye on, which is something that's perplexing to me because if Leon Rose and Tom Thibodeau are supposedly these best friends that we all hear about, why wouldn't they be on the same page about this move? It doesn't really make sense, but I digress. But why? Why did the Knicks trade for him in the first place? What went wrong? Those are just a few questions that fans have been wondering, which is why one fan asked Ian Begley for a legitimate answer as to why Reddish isn't playing. He's part of Begley's response that has lit Knicks Twitter on fire. Now, here is the bit on what actually happened, reportedly. At one point before that December 4th game, Reddish expressed displeasure to a Knicks assistant coach about the way Thibodeau was using him. Per people familiar with the matter, Reddish has not played since he expressed that displeasure. Does that factor into why Thibodeau has kept Reddish out of the rotation? I don't know the answer to that question. What is the expression, where there's smoke, there's fire? This definitely seems to add up to me. He expresses his displeasure to one of the assistants on or before December 4th. And at that point, we haven't seen Cam Reddish in a game since. You 1 and 1 equals 2. 1 plus 1 equals 2. And this seems like a 1 plus 1 situation. Now, however, if this is actually true, then that tells me one simple thing, that Tom Thibodeau has to be one of the most pathetic coaches in NBA history. I mean, players will always have disagreements with their playing time. Everyone in the NBA believes that they're the best of the best, right? They're all professionals. Well, most of them anyway. But they're all very talented. And I'm sure every player, for the most part, would like to have their role increased if they're on the bench, if they have a secondary role. And that's just, part of the game. Now, if Cam is going to an assistant coach in confidence expressing his displeasure, and that's getting back to Cam, that's a little snakish in my eyes, just looking at that detail right there. But where is the leadership from Tom Thibodeau? This is something that, when I think about coaching, of course, you want to be able to know the X's and O's. You want to know the fundamentals of the game. But coaching sports, in my mind, it's more about being a leader of men, being able to communicate with people. You got to convince grown men to go out and follow your orders. And if they don't respect you, if they're not sort of galvanized behind your presence, then nothing is going to work. It doesn't matter how, technically sound you are, how intelligent you are with your schemes and your playbook. If these guys don't respect you and they don't follow you, they're not going to listen to anything that you're talking about. And this is just one of the reasons why, myself included, Knicks fans alike, we want Tom Thibodeau going, because how petty is something like that? Clearly Cam earned his spot. Going back to the beginning of the season, Cam was playing impressively, especially on the defensive end. He was playing well with the starters, and I believe he earned a spot in this rotation. Now, whether that's in the starting lineup, whether that's in the bench, you can mix and match combinations of what will be the outcome, but he definitely earned a position. But let me continue on. Cam Reddish reportedly expressed displeasure. Yep, we talked about that already. It's worth noting that the last game that Cam Reddish played was in December 3rd. So that's why fans assume that him speaking up about his role is what has led to him no longer playing. However, while that could be true, notice that Ian Begley wrote that he doesn't know whether or not that had anything to do with Reddish being removed from the rotation. Of course, we will never know. It's not like Tom Thibodeau is going to come out and say, yeah, when he, badmouthed me to one of my assistant coaches, I made the decision to bench him. Of course, he's never going to say that. So no one can definitively say if that was actually the truth. But this is seeming to add up, if you ask me, because what other way can you justify Cam Reddish being benched? If you want to talk about, one of the speculations that I mentioned earlier as to keeping him on the bench and not letting him get injured, which could ruin a trade. Yeah, that is something that has been done in the past. But if you're trying to trade a guy, you want to increase his value by playing him. And teams won't be able to really make a decision on a guy if he's not playing. So that speculation didn't really add up. This seems to me to be the most one that makes the most sense to me. And again, if that's true, that's just very unfortunate. But let's continue. From Ian Begley again, Tom Thibodeau was asked today about Cam Reddish getting DNPs on nights when other out of the rotation players getting fourth quarter minutes late in blowouts. We just want him to stay ready. It's a coach's decision, Thibodeau said. What do you mean we just want him to stay ready? This guy is lying to the public with these comments. Every time these coaches come up to these post games and give their thoughts on the post game or when they just ask questions like this, they lie all the time. I mean, why would Tom Thibodeau again tell the truth about why he benched Cam Reddish? So this is a moot point. There has to be more to the story, of course. Does the Reddish treatment all fall on Thibodeau? According to the New York Post, the head coach didn't want to trade for the forward to begin with. As I mentioned, clearly it's a move that the front office wanted to make. Does this all come down to Thibodeau and the front office having a difference in opinion? Again, we all talked about this last season. It doesn't seem like the coach and the front office are on the same page. And I don't care what sport it is, basketball, football, baseball, whatever. If the coach and the front office is not on the same page, you are going to have major problems. And as a result, we're just going to end up trading Cam for second round picks. And unfortunately, we could have increased his trade value if we were actually playing him, or perhaps if we were playing him, we would have been in a situation where we would try to keep him. But that's going to be the end of the video, guys. Let me know what you think in the comments. Let me know if you're upset about this whole Cam situation. Is this a fireable offense for Tom Thibodeau? And let's see what happens in the next 3 days. Obviously, Cam is a goner. Hopefully, he ends up in a much better situation that he's been presented with this team. And I hope it works out for him. That's going to be the end of the video, guys. Catch you on the rebound. Peace.